Fantastic. I can sense the questions coming from the audience. We've got one more poll to do, so let's do our final question of the poll, though. So this is very much about implementation, and I admire your candour, James. So disruption is not easy to deliver. So we have another poll, which is where we want you to write a word. So the question is, if you gave one piece of advice to others about how to implement new technology, what would this be? One-word answers, please. Nobody said don't, so that's a good start. So yeah, testing coming out very strongly. Pilot, patient, brave, yes. So when you hear about digital, you hear phrases, don't you, like sort of iterate fast, you know, you learn on the go, and this is kind of, I guess, sense the reality of what it's talking about. I guess patience, when you've got a business that's wanting to change quickly and more quickly, is a bit of a hard one to balance. Fab. Okay, we'll keep putting those through and we'll move on to... So, James, this is back to you, this question. So what steps have you taken to ensure smooth implementation of recruitment technology into your enterprise?
Yeah, that didn't happen. I think the key thing for us was about setting the right objectives from the outset. And I know that sounds like a really obvious thing to say, but you know, and you'll see this today with all the different suppliers, but there's so many out there, and there is so many different offshoots that you can go with technology now within recruitment. And we really needed to be clear on the why, the purpose behind that, in terms of actually when we look at technology and solutions, does that really kind of hit the mark in terms of what our overall objective is? It kind of acts as your true north. So then when it's a case of going to the business to get buy-in, or, you know, it's working with, you know, suppliers on actually who should we select and whittle this down to, you know, you've got a really clear set of objectives that you're always coming back to, and that was really, really key at every stage in the implementation. So I remember we had this spreadsheet as part of the the supplier procurement stage of our process, and it had like all of our wish list, and that was pretty much everything you could do in recruitment, and we were looking at everybody against that in terms of would it deliver, and that acted so well in terms of actually really cutting out whether or not somebody could meet our needs or not, and that was really key. It then helped in terms of buying from the business when we got pushback as well, to demonstrate the benefits of why we were adopting so many different types of technologies to improve the process, and then it helped with the team in terms of securing their buy-in, in terms of it sounds corny, but taking them on a journey really, which is half the battle as well. When it, you know, then came to implementing it, we needed obviously kind of watertight project management. Every single risk needed to be called out. We needed to really manage those carefully ahead of go live, because it was quite a pressured time frame that we were working towards. And again, when we went live, you obviously have training and so on, but there's no substitute for when you start using the product, and it never goes how you think it's going to go. So I think, you know, building in contingency, planning for the fact that there are going to be curveballs, and really being able to adapt to those is really fundamental. And if I think about what we've done this year, and I don't know, I maybe get a sense from other people on the panel, but you know, we try to do everything in one go, which is brave, and you know, we've done some amazing stuff and we're all very proud of it, but we've also got the scars to show for it. And as a team, you know, we've had an unbelievably challenging year because we've tried to adopt so much technology, and it really needs focus. So if I were to go back a couple of years and really think about it, I would probably challenge myself and my team and directors and so on, kind of, you know, pushing for the big bang approach, and maybe consider staggering that, because actually focusing on one thing and doing it brilliantly and then moving on to the next might have been a better way to go. I think we'll have a great year next year. We've got a burning platform, but to get there has been a big challenge.
Is this the type 2 fun that Mark was talking about? Yes, for those who understand it. So Amanda, James talks about the scars. You must have implemented this a number of clients. So any advice you would give to employers, you know, implementing this stuff?
Sure, yeah. So obviously you've heard about some of the stories, but I think primarily the most important thing is having those open and honest conversations. So as you work kind of in true partnership with your clients, that's really, really important, including obviously the panel here, but we've done 33 setups in the last year. And actually, the most important thing, you know, they're all very different, they're very unique, but the underlying principles are definitely the same. The number one factor, I would say, absolutely, is your timescales. So the timescales of how long the actual implementation will take, but also what the overall objective is as to how long that project needs to be, because the two don't always marry up, and it's very important to have those conversations. In terms of project tools and processes, absolutely, that is, you know, fundamental. It sounds obvious, but it is so important to have the right project plans in place, and ultimately a plan, absolutely, but also to make sure that you have time to check in all the time to make sure everything is working as it should and make changes where you need to. I think mentioned earlier, James, with the kind of the big bang approach, there are times where there is an objective or a need to do that, but ultimately the ideal is to work iteratively. So you can, again, check in and make sure that everything is working for you and you have the opportunity to test as you're going. We'd also try and talk about doing a best in breed. There's not need, or there doesn't need to be a kind of one size fits all. Technology has its main primary objective, and sometimes trying to have an existing technology do all the things for you is not necessarily the best approach. Sometimes can actually be far more costly, timely, and doesn't give you the outcome that you need, as opposed to really looking at that best in breed technology solution. I guess overall there are some steps which are really important that we would always try to encourage everyone to follow. That early engagement with whoever you're choosing to work with, really important to understand what the candidate journey is, and then try and understand if there is any integration points with any other suppliers that you need to be thinking about, and early on. We'd definitely be talking about involving IT security teams early. There are amount of times that comes late into a process and can throw up some real challenges, so that's a really important piece. And I think, again, I think James may have mentioned it, but in terms of having that understanding of your objectives as opposed to perhaps a solution that you really like the idea of or the sound of, really understand what your objectives are and then go from there in terms of what that solution needs to be. But overall, you know, the processes that you go through, it's just really important to just go back to that objective, go back to your plan, and make sure that it's working as you thought.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so I'm just looking at my watch. We've got 5 minutes left, is that right? Yep, Tom's just put the card up just as... So we've got 5 minutes of questions. So any questions from the floor? If you can... Oh, hands going up straight away. Steph, do you want to kick off? And if it's for a particular person, just let us know.
The general questions. I'm Steph from Capgemini. We introduced...
Oh, there's a mic behind you, Steph.
I'm Steph from Capgemini. We introduced paperless assessment centres last year, and we were trying to get our assessors to input their results onto their laptops. And there was a lot of pushback around that, and particularly in an interview situation, they prefer to write the notes, and then that actually adds time because then they're uploading their results into the tools. So have any of you faced similar problems and overcome that?
I would say definitely. For our assessments, we had exactly the same feedback, because we didn't want them using their laptops in an interview scenario or a group exercise. You could just imagine the candidate sitting there and tap, tap, tap. As soon as they start speaking, it's so obvious who's watching them. So to try and avoid that, we did get them to take the paper notes, write it up, and of course that's more time, but we put a real emphasis then again back on the candidate. The feedback that they get by putting it into a system, if your system's well designed to capture really valuable feedback for that candidate, that whether they're successful or not, they can take and benefit from, we put that more as the emphasis. And of course the wash up then is so much quicker. It takes so much time out of it, and we always start the wash up by saying, this is going to sound really savage, but your definite yeses and your definite nos, you don't even talk about them anymore, because you've already invested that time giving them meaningful feedback, putting it into a system that can really then draw that out for the candidate to get a proper report. So we tried to use the time savings and the wash up as one way that it was beneficial, and secondarily the vastly improved feedback for the candidate as something that is worth investing their time in.
Cool. Thank you. Conscious of time, so let's keep the questions flowing. So another question?
Hi there, it's Amelia here from Siemens. I'd be really interested to hear if any of you've got some good digital examples of pre-boarding experiences, because it's something that we've really struggled with at Siemens.
Who'd like to take that one?
No, We struggle as well. We struggle as well. You know, I think it's something that we focus so much on the attraction piece in the recruitment process, and it's this void that actually a lot of us are not getting right. We're probably doing some stuff. In a company like EY, for example, we think there's probably 5 or 6 different teams that get involved in pre-boarding, whether it's the professional qualifications team, the actual onboarding team, a third party that's doing pre-employment screening, and it needs work. We've looked at some products that are out there, and obviously I'm not going to plug any of them now, but I'd be happy to kind of talk to you about them afterwards. But there are some that are really interesting. Where I see the opportunity in this space is actually around learning. And if you've got a really sophisticated let's say an applicant tracking system and a robust framework that you recruit against, if you can be data-led in terms of deploying targeted learning during that pre-boarding experience, that is really additive. I don't think anyone's getting that particularly right, but that's a personal kind of, I guess, a passion of mine that I'd like to see more of.
Anybody else want?
I'll add something very briefly to that. Don't disagree with you at all. We've been, depending on your definition of pre-boarding, we've had electronic contracts for a number of years now. So our candidates will go through a digital process for accepting an offer, etc. But on the early career side, we bolt in very quickly a very simple buddy system that works really, really well. And that buddy is responsible for a lot of our, a diminished reneged offer situation. We always have reneged offers, but they really do help keep those candidates warm and bring them into the process. And I'm going to plug a product, to be honest with you, because I think a lot about what we're talking about today is about relationships. And at the moment, we're going through a process of implementing Connector with the My Kind of Future gang, and the experience has been fantastic. And from what I can see at the moment, I know there are other products that can do something similar, but that's really going to help us on the pre-boarding side. So some of you smart people in the room will already have it. We've had to sort of fight for funding for 18 months, but you've got the attraction side that is going to give you that access for the students to connect directly in with your people, which fits the candidate experience and helps our journey. But there's also a pre-boarding element to it, which is going to help our buddies and that keep warm. So again, that's that blended approach of technology and access to people that have been through the programme and want to know what it's like in Atkins.
Cool. Fantastic. Excellent. I am conscious of time. It's 12:30 and you've heard the claps next door, so I think we need to cut it off. Yes, Tom's going to say they'll open the doors in a minute anyway. So can we have a louder cheer than next door for our wonderful panel? Thank you very much. Thank you for your candour. I'm sure these conversations will continue afterwards. Thank you to Amberjack for helping pull this panel together. We will be taking some of this content and putting it on blogs. You'll find it on the IC website. So time to move to the next session. Thank you very much.